gentlemen, how are you feeling? Ooh, I like it. Yeah, someone did drink some caffeine this morning. Quick question for each and every one of you. Raise your hand if you are creative. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I see about a third of you, right? The others of you, you don't feel very confident, but I'm going to tell you each and every one of you are creative. Y'all remember when you were all back in kindergarten? If you would have been in the same seats in kindergarten and I would have asked the same question, right? If I was to walk in, or your principal, or another teacher, or a parent would walk in, and they would ask you, how many of you are creative? About 99.9% of you would raise your hand. And you know the reason why? Because you remember back when you were 5 years old, right? Everything was a joy, because I would have asked that question, and there will be that one kid who look at me straight from the back. He's like, brother, you haven't even seen me tie my shoes yet. I'm a genius. Right? Because back in those days, we owned what we learned. We were excited, right? We were excited about learning. Over the time, it has changed a little bit, right? You're like, oh, okay, Steam Week. Okay, let's see what presenters our wonderful folks bring us. So this is where I like to share my story. My name is Martin Ricardo Cisneros Orozco Jr. Please repeat. Just want to see if you guys were paying attention, that's all, okay. Yes, my name is Martin Cisneros. I am an education evangelist for Adobe. And I know what you're thinking, you're like, Martin, what the heck is an education evangelist? Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you, I'm saying the word evangelist and not evangelical, so please don't get those two things twisted. So, an evangelist is an old Greek term that means bringing the good news to the people, which is what I'm doing today. See, because at Adobe, we are the #1 creative company in the world. We are the #1 storytelling company in the world. Anybody here listens to music? Anybody streams music? Made on Adobe tools. Have you been to the movies lately? Do you watch movies on Hulu, Netflix? Do you read books? More than likely, Adobe has touched you in some form or shape. We are penetrating 85% of the world, right? Whether it's advertisements, whether it's book publishing, whether it's audio, video, you name the products, more than likely Adobe uses it. Anybody here uses Amazon? Jeff and team uses Adobe. Anybody here play with Microsoft or Google? They use Adobe as well. But the reason why I'm telling you is because when I was sitting in your seats, I never would have thought, one day I want to be an education evangelist. Because guess what? Like you, I had no idea what that meant, right? When I was your age, it's like, oh, am I going to get to that university? Am I going to get into that scholarship, right? And one of the things you'll know is that I was an opportunist at my, from the early stages, right? So I've come over my lifetime, you're going to hear about the gazillion jobs I had over the years, but it was always about sharing my story to shape how my future was going to be. Now, I know for a lot of you it's easy, you do it every day. For a lot of you, you're like, nobody wants to hear my story. I am not so different than everybody else in this classroom, or this auditorium, I should say, right? But here's what I will tell you. What I will tell you is that over the years, I've learned that, oh no, storytelling is very important, no matter what you do, right? No matter what industry you think you're going to go into, storytelling is going to be important. So I learned to look at life a little differently and share my story, so hopefully I get to inspire others. But my main thing, from the get-go, is how do I inspire the next generation of lifelong creators, which is you, right? So at Adobe, I get to do this, right? I get to, oh my goodness, I get to travel the world, go into wonderful educational institutions like yourselves, and connect with, of course, the adults, connect with students, and teach you how to be a little bit more creative in your journey, right? Now, you're probably thinking, Martin, what does creativity has to do with our future, with our success? Here's what I'll tell you, right? Adults, please raise your hand if you have to be creative in the job that you do. Kids, now look around, right? Adults, I'm going to ask the question again. For those of you who have your hands up, keep your hands up. Adults, how many of you use creativity every single day to do your jobs? Yeah. So if you're scanning around, you're going to see most of them, right? But the reality is, for the other ones, there's something about, we're all creative. We cannot do our jobs without creativity, no matter what industry. I saw your lineup for this whole week, and oh my gosh, you have some amazing presenters. You can ask them afterwards, how many of you use creativity? They're going to say it quite a bit. So I have the fun and the opportunity to go around and teach educators how they can become a little bit more creative in their teaching and learning in the classroom. Now, how did I get the skill set? Well, first and foremost, I was born and raised, that's right, that's yours truly, back in kindergarten. And I was born and raised in Central California, Merced, California, gateway to Yosemite. And I was part of a migrant family, which meant that I spent a lot, we didn't have daycare on the weekends, so I would go with my parents, usually to the farms to do some work. And I spent a lot of time just literally by myself. But what I learned is that's where a lot of my creativity came from, because I got to use the environment that was around me. And as I grew up, I knew that I saw the world a little differently, right? Because I was that kid in class when I would sit down, I would think about, oh, class is pretty cool. I kind of like my teacher. I kind of like my friends. But I don't want to be here all 6 hours. I don't want to be here all 7 hours. Is there anything that I can do to get out of the classroom? Now, what I meant by that is I heard that there was these clubs, there was these teams, and there was these all kinds of different stuff. So I heard that we had a marching band. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have a marching band? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, I want to be in the marching band. And they're like, you do? They're like, Martin, what do you play? I'm like, what do you want me to play? I'll learn it. I learned how to play the trumpet, right? And then I heard we were having a new baseball team. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have a baseball team? Yeah. What do they do? Well, they go to games and they get you out a little bit, about 1 hour early before, they get you out of what? They get you out of class? I'm in. What do you play? What do you want me to play? And I grew up in the 80s, ladies and gentlemen, so we had this thing called breakdancing back in the days. That's when it was barely getting up and running. So I heard that there was this group that were practicing and they were going to do it for our performance. And same thing, I asked again. So everything that you see up here, right, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, art club, whatever it was, I did it because I wanted to get out of class. But what I was really doing is I was leveling up my opportunities for future growth, right? Because what ended up happening by doing all these amazing things, and if you look at that red mark, that's me right there. I think I was playing the drums at this point. But as we move forward, right, I knew that they were certain things that was interested that allow me to have new experiences. And by having new experiences, it brought a lot of creativity to me. So along the way, I learned, because I kept on hearing you need to find your genius. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, especially in elementary school. By the time I got to middle school, all I knew is the universe gave me the gift of gab. So I can speak my way or out of pretty much anything back in those days, right? It was good and bad. At the same time, I didn't like to write, but I wrote well because I knew how to tell stories. Now, I come from a long line of storytellers, and I remember going to Mexico, Guadalajara, Mexico, and seeing my great-grandmother, I used to call her my personal Yoda, by the way, that she would be cooking for 30 kids of her great-grandkids, telling us stories about our families, about how they grew up. And as I got older, I used to think, oh my gosh, that's genius. She held our attention for 2 hours without us blinking an eye and still feeding us at the same time, right? I'm like, okay, that's part of my genius as well. So as I went through life a little bit, I started thinking, what are some other great things that, or what are some other things that I enjoy? So by the time I got to university, now, you guys are seeing my size, right? I'm a decent size. In high school, I got to about 235. Couldn't wear a tie, my neck was too big. I couldn't wear jeans because my thighs were too big. I played football. And I got a scholarship to go play for San Diego State University. Now, when I got there, like I said, I was pretty decent for a kid coming out of Central California. when I got to university, little did I know that most of my linemen were about 285 by the time they were 5 years old. These were big guys, right? So practice wasn't as much fun as it used to be because I was going against walls back at that point. I made it through a year, and then I remember my coach says, Cisneros, we need you at 265. And I laughed because I'm like, all I do is work out, eat, and go to school, and I have no other life. And you want me to gain more weight? I'm like, Coach, this is what the universe gave me. But like everything else, right? Opportunities, always thinking about it. So there was this person right next to me as I'm telling my coach that I'm about to quit the football team because I need to find different ways to get through school. So there was the cheerleading coach. He's like, hey, our mascot is leaving because he's a senior and we're looking for a new mascot. You fit the bill. What if you take his place and you get to keep your scholarship? So I became Monty Montezuma, AKA the Aztec Warrior, for San Diego State. So I did that. Not only that, but along the way, I went and tried different clubs out like I normally do. So I heard about the fraternity and sorority system. And I went there and it was great. I met new friends, I networked a lot, but there weren't a lot of people, a lot of the stuff that I was interested in. So I got together with other people like myself, and we created the very first Latino fraternity in California, known as Nu Alpha Kappa, right? And our drive is how do we help other kids develop a sense of genius in themselves so they can continue doing what they're doing. Whether it was school, creating your business, or something else. And that always stuck with me, especially during that time. Because as I got older, right, there was many opportunities. So like I said, I did the football deal, I did the mascot, and after a while, I started doing other things. But one of the reasons I went to San Diego State because I wanted to do graphic design. And I got an internship, and that internship led to another opportunity. So I did the motion graphics for Spanish television soap operas. That was my job in the 90s, right? And I remember one day, the only man with the suit who walked into our room comes in and says, looks at me, he's like, hey, can you speak Spanish? And the opportunist that I am, I'm like, si puedo, right? So he goes, come here. He goes, I want you to read this. He goes, it's in English, but I want you to translate it. And whatever you read, I want you to be surprised and passionate. Surprised and passionate. So I'm walking with him, and we're walking to this recording booth. And in the paper it says, you are a father, and you're surprised that your kid is hungry again because he just finished eating cereal. Now I had to translate that into Spanish. Little did these wonderful folks know, when I was a kid, one of my favorite games with their friends was to go onto the TV, turn off the volume, and we would ad-lib whatever we thought was going on. So when I got this paper, and they're like, okay, remember, surprise and passion. So I got the paper, and I went, the doors closed, microphone came down, and I remember going, and in just that voice, they were like, oh my gosh, you've done this before. And I'm like, But they're like, you got the job. And I'm like, woo, all right, this is something cool. So I got to do that. I then went and worked for Universal Studios. I'm looking at adults again. Adults, if you ever saw a cartoon in the 90s called Bobby's World, I drew Uncle Ted. So, got really into graphic design and so forth, but the reality is I thought I was going to quit school because I thought I found what I'm really good at. I'm going to be a graphic designer and a voiceover artist, and that's what I'm going to do. Until a friend of mine called and says, hey, can you still teach kids or people how to survive out in the wilderness? Because that's what I used to do for a job as well. And I'm like, yeah. So what ended up happening, I went up the mountain as a graphic designer and voiceover artist and came back down wanting to be a teacher. So what ended up happening, I graduated and I started teaching kindergarten. That was my very first grade. So I've taught every grade level except, I started off in kindergarten, except first, second, 7th, 10th, and 11th. Along the way, someone said, Martin, you'll make a great principal, and I actually believed them. So I went back to school, got my master's, got my credential, and I became a principal, 2 years in elementary, 2 years in secondary, and guess which one was my favorite? Yeah, neither one of them. I didn't like the job, right? So I salute the people who are principals. It just wasn't me. Where I found my group was helping other teachers out becoming better teachers, especially with technology. So not only that, I used to do the news. I used to write for the Spanish TV. And then, like I said, I became an educator. And along the way of becoming an educator, I was the type of teacher that couldn't stay too long in one particular classroom because I thought, oh, there's so much to learn, right? So what I learned to develop in every class that I went is how do I develop a safe learning environment where genius can happen for anybody who's in my classroom. Which meant I had to learn techniques in order to get the best out of you. Because there's some of you who would love to collaborate with the teacher, with everyone else. Some of you hold back for whatever reason. So my thought is like, how do I get everybody to be involved, right? And this is where technology came in. So technology, I knew no matter what size or shape you were, where you came from, technology was always something that people enjoyed. So I used that over my years as a teacher, as a principal, as a director, as a coordinator. I worked for the state, worked for 4 different county offices. I think I've been to your campus before, about 6 years ago for something completely different. And along the way, I learned that I needed key mentors. And that my friends that I also mentored, right? Because you never know where you're going to end up. And the people that I used to mentor, this was a professional development that we did with some friends back in Southern California. There are, in this particular picture, it's coming, the 2 women that you see in the star are now work with me at Adobe, right? Because you never know where you're going to meet up next. Now with Rebecca here, the gal with the red hair, she does a lot of our curriculum stuff for us. Lindsay, the one at the top of the stairs, she handles a lot of our community and engagement. So even though we were all educators before, we found ourselves in a place where we can all develop our own genius and give out to the people in front of us. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, why would they hire teachers at Adobe? What does that have to do with anything? So Adobe has realized that in order for us to help the next generation of lifelong creators, they needed to build a product and a system to help everybody out. Because, like I said before, when I asked the question, how many of you are geniuses? A third of you, all right, I'm sorry, how many of you are creative? A third of you rose your hand, but the reality we know is each and every one of you are creative. So you need to tell your story, and telling your story is a superpower. So the reason I say that is because when I left San Diego and moved up to this area, I knew that telling my story was going to help other folks. So in sharing our stories, we shape the future. So how do we do that at Adobe, right? So this is, of course, where all the fun begins. Now, you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to change that. Hold on. Let me, I'm going to stop on, wait, there's a cancel, stop sharing. And I am now going to share my full screen, all displays, entire window. All right. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. Can we see that? Okay, we're there. All right. So this is our latest and greatest product. This is called Adobe Express for Education. And if you're wondering, what's the big one? There's a gazillion apps out there. Here's the main difference. Adobe has 41 industry standard tools. What does that mean? That means if you go out into the world and you either want to build a product, you want to go into the job force, they're going to ask you what certifications do you have. You tell them what you're really good at, but they're going to ask, do you have any certifications in Adobe? Once again, the reason is because we have 41 industry standard tools. Now, if you're like me, the first time I learned anything about Adobe, I learned Photoshop first back in the late 2000s. And I remember taking a 6-hour course at my local community college. And basically all I figured out back in those days was how to turn on Photoshop and how to turn it off. Nothing else stuck. So Adobe Express borrows from Photoshop, borrows from Illustrator, from Premiere. And today, ladies and gentlemen, today we get to help kids all over share their stories. For example, we have something called animated character. So if you want to tell your wonderful story, anybody take a fun trip during the summer? Anybody want to share their fun trip during their summer? Ma'am?
I went to 6 places in 3 days.
Okay, come here. So we're going to have you model, and we are going to turn you. Yes, let's give it a hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn you into a backpack. Right? I know. You're like, what? Yes, we're going to turn you into a backpack, and I don't know what your trip is about. I'm assuming you saw trees along your trip at some point. All right, what you're going to do, you're going to hit record, and you're going to tell us your story in front of the computer, while the rest of us, guess what? We're going to turn back and become third graders again that just came back from recess. And we are going to speak very loudly to our friends. You ready? And I'm going to show you a little bit of the magic that happens in the background. Okay, go ahead, click record. And third graders, oh my God, did you see how that guy was playing? I can't believe he took the ball away from me. Oh my God, are you hungry as well? Because I'm hungry. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to do this. And just let me know whenever you're done. We're going to continue. You're done? All right, hit the done button. All right, third graders, thank you so much. So here's what's happening right now. She just finished telling her story, and you know how quiet we just were, right? Yeah. So with the amount of noise, normally if you're going to record something, right, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your mobile device, or your computer, you're going to need a quiet room, and you're thinking, if I need a type of audio, I need a better microphone. But the reality, you're going to be able to do this with whatever computer's in front of you. We took her audio, we're uploading it to the Adobe servers now. In the Adobe servers, we are cleaning it up as we speak. That means it's listening to everybody around here, it's suppressing the noise, and it's enhancing our voice at the same time. But not only that, it looks back down to see, oh, what character did you choose? And it will say, oh, you chose the pink backpack. So now it's lip syncing her voice with the backpack. And in a few moments, she is going to turn into that backpack to tell her story. Questions so far? No? No? How are we doing in time? Because 7 minutes. Okay, perfect. So we're going to get to that. But let's give her an applause. I'm going to show you what that looks like. But what I love about this, we're going to have this continue going on. Okay, perfect, it's coming out. So what I love about Adobe Express, it allows us to do a variety of very, very cool things. For example, we have developed these things called guided activities. So for folks who have never played around with this technology, this will now be a great opportunity to learn about the latest and greatest of generative AI without having to know too much about other folks. So we have a learn section where we can learn. But here's the fun part, right? What I love about what we've done here is when you click on something, the editor automatically shows up on the left-hand side. So for example, I'm going to click on this kid, I'm going to click on generate image. And what we've done is we always think about how do people learn, right? So we think about you. And y'all remember the way we learn how to write? You remember we have these things called sentence starters? The blank can jump over the fence. Is it the glass of water? Is it the flower? Or is it John? Can John jump over the fence? And of course we're like, oh yeah, John jumps over the fence. So the way we learn how to write is the way we're teaching our future creators how to create. So for example, this is the first time you can turn yourself into a Funko Pop, right? But how do you do it? What are the words? How do you practice prompting? By the way, prompting is part of our language arts. So anyway, look at this. So if I want this to look a little bit more like me, I'm going to type in male. I'm going to type in black eyes. I am going to say, I'm going to change this component. And I'm going to take that to mid. I'm going to change eyes again to black. And I'm pretty much going back in time when I was a kid. I used to wear white shirts, blue jeans, my glasses were black. And I don't know about red shoes, but I did wear white shoes. And I don't know about soccer because I was horrible at soccer, but I did love baseball. So holding a baseball bat and wearing a baseball hat. All right. Now that I have that, everything else looks pretty much good. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, where I really need your help. So I'm going to hit this purple button that says generate. But when I do so, I need everybody to give me jazz hands. Jazz hands, because if you don't do jazz hands and my kid comes out ugly, I'm blaming it on you. I don't see jazz hands. Okay, thank you. There we go. Jazz hands, everyone. Jazz hands. By the way, this is an old trick that I used to use. But hold on, right? The jazz hands is the old trick I used to use as a computer teacher, but I wanted you to see this because most AI out there will only give you one type of person. At Adobe, we're very inclusive, so we're going to give you different models, right? Now, I can go in here, and as you see the different models, right? I love this. If I want to be specific, I can go back up here and say Latino, right? What I love about what Adobe is doing is we're being very inclusive. If you say astronaut, if you say engineer, it's not just going to give you a male, it's going to give you a female as well. This is going to give you a variety, right? We are allowing different people. Oh my gosh, I gained weight. Okay. So what I love about Adobe is, of course, it allows you to do all these amazing things. Now, back to our friend, it's still catching up. Okay, so y'all ready? I'm sorry, Matt, what was your name? Becca? Okay, so remember how loud we were, right? Y'all remember that? Check this out. Oh, you can't hear it. Hold on. I'm going to get my microphone as close as possible.
I went into sixth place. I'm reading look on my little ways for and you know how I know like that or you know how everything because I'm dead. Oh my gosh.
Okay. It was a little off, okay. But it's probably just my internet connection here. But one of the reasons why I love, some people might say, well, Martin, is there other, yes, the reality is we are now at the point where we can change your voice. You can speak in English and it'll translate it to German, and it'll translate it to Russian, it'll translate it to Italian, whatever that might be, right? But I'm saying all of this because at the end, what I really, really want is I really want you to start thinking about how you can tell your own story, right? I'm not showing the right thing anymore. Okay, I'm gonna go back to this video stuff. One more time. All screen. There we go. All right. There we go. So I always tell people is think about what you are really good at. Think about what you want to do. But I want you to understand that no matter what your talent is, right? And for some of you might not have found it so far, but believe me, it's there. And I want you to understand that you are outstanding. That's why you stand out. So if you feel different and you're like, but I don't know if I should, the answer is yes, you should for so many different ways. Now, your creativity is a gift. Some of you already know what that creativity looks like. Some of you do not know, but this is why you are in school. Now, on here, part of my creativity is I love to tell stories, and I want you to be a part of my story today. So, if you wouldn't mind, can you all stand up and give me jazz hands? And we're going to do this for Adobe, so you can be part of my story. We're going to have Everybody stand up. All right. Okay. Off the countdown, and jazz hands or point at the camera, whichever one's better. Because some of you are like, all right, here we go. Ready? On. 5, 4, 3, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me.